Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. This will be part 6 in this series looking at the Corpus Hermeticum or the Hermetica, which includes the Emerald Tablet, the letters of Asclepius. So the question is, who is Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus? Quite a bit written about that, presented about that, but amongst those presentations you'll find that there is some very important omissions in regards to that, and I would say a lot more wishful thinking than actual anything on a strong basis. So who is Hermes? There is no Hermes, and I'll explain this very clearly now. So Iamblichus on the mysteries of the Egyptians, Chaldeans, Assyrians, 3rd century AD, when just about as when all the oldest texts which the Corpus Hermetica were based on emerge around this period. And in his first page, Hermes, the god who presides over language, properly considered as common to all priests, the true science concerning the gods. But the kicker is, hence our ancestors dedicated the inventions of their wisdom to this deity, inscribing all their writings with the name Hermes. And I'm going to be repeating and mentioning that over and over because it's very, very important. So we see this very early work, which is based on Iamblichus, mathematician, Neoplatonist, which is really where all this Hermeticism emerges from, the Gnostics, Neoplatonists, leading to Hermeticism, Rosicrucians, and these types of groups, but this feature. So Hermes is a pen name, a nom de plume, as it's in the Francais, inscribing all their writings with the name of Hermes. So in the earlier parts I mentioned Nicholas Copernicus. He's on the revolution of the heavenly spheres, presenting the geocentric model. He attributes Hermes as a source of his wisdom, inscribing our ancestors dedicated the inventions of their wisdom to this deity, inscribing all their writings with the name of Hermes. Okay, so Copernicus, mathematician, astronomer, economist, the Quadrivium, geometry, music, arithmetic, astronomy, and the 7 liberal arts and the early sciences of the old school of teaching in that sense. He attributes Hermes. Now I'll link the House of Wisdom by Jim Al-Khalili talks about the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. So in the early caliphates they were collecting Indian, Persian, Greek, Roman, Egyptian, any old texts they could get their hands on, and they were translating them, and they were also improving on them. And Copernicus gives credit to Hermes. However, what he doesn't give credit to is Althussi, an astronomer, mathematician, geometrician, and physicist of the period of that House of Wisdom. So there we see Copernicus's diagram and of the couple. That's a very important geometric discovery, and it also relates to the orbits of the planets. Now, there's Copernicus' drawing, and there's Althussi's drawing. It's not it's famous comparison of the Althussi diagrams, of the Althussi couple diagrams, Althussi 1261, and that of Copernicus 1543. Not is it the similarity of the shapes is remarkable, but as the identity of the letters labeling the points. Althussi Aleph, that's where Copernicus uses A. B, G, D, so on. So it's an exact copy. Althussi was not Hermes, but so it's not really in Copernicus. He doesn't really he credits Hermes. He doesn't credit Althussi. Hermes is a pen name, generic name used for all these people, these scholars. The Quadrivium, the Trivium, philosophy back in the day was a more broad term for science as well. So all these scientists, chemists as well, all credit Hermes. Now you can see Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes, geometry, astronomy, weights and measures, physics. Hermes Trismegistus is a pen name. This is De Re Metallica by George Agricola, very, very important book. Presented some videos on this before, but it's a textbook on firstly how to find minerals and metals, how to mine them, worker safety, It's a textbook on mining, also on refining metals as well. Very, very important text of this Hermetic period, and so important to Hermeticism. It was, the English translation was by Herbert Hoover, who went on to become president, where he is meeting Madame Curie, Mary Curie, famous for her work on radium and radioactive materials. Now, if you want to go a bit of down a rabbit hole, George Agricola, look up the original meaning of his name, the original family name of a Rothschild prior to Bauer. Agricola Mining Companies, the Credit Agricole Company, the Curies and their connections to, and how the Rothschilds supported this work. Herbert Hoover and Fort Knox. There's a nice little rabbit trail if you want to go down that way, linking these things. Now that's important because metallurgy, alchemy, is just super important in coin making and banking. And there's a famous coin maker's house in Frankfurt. I mentioned earlier that Cosimo de Medici, banker and politician, was the one who funded the search for these older texts and paid for the translations. Copernicus, along with astronomy, also developed Gresham's law, early economic theory on money. Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus, was the god of knowledge, science, weights and measures, commerce, and also travellers or navigators. This is a very important feature as well, because in the opening notes by Herbert Hoover in regards to De Re Metallica, he references a letter from Elector Augustus to Agricola in 1555, and it reads, "It is our gracious command that you should get the book translated when you have the opportunity into German, and not let it be copied more than once or be printed, but keep it by you and send us a copy. If you should need a writer for this purpose, we will provide one. Keep it secret, keep it safe." He also mentions that one of the big problems in this early translation, this is Hoover writing, it is a wretched work by one who knew nothing of the science and who more especially had no appreciation of the peculiar Latin terms used by Agricola, most of which are rendered literally. Bad translation. The guy didn't understand the science, and this is an issue with Hermetica, especially on the internet at the moment. They've turned it into a new age thing, and they're really missing the point of what these texts are, and they're essentially related to the Quadrivium. Keep it secret, keep it safe. I'll link a video in the description, part 33 I did on the science of the symbols. Alchemy, it's a deadly serious business. Knowledge is power, power is money, trade secrets, military secrets. So back in the time of Agricola, Basil Valentine and all these famous Hermeticists, alchemists of the time. Navigation, military secrets, banking secrets, medicinal secrets, armor, gunpowder. These are all at the heart of alchemy, and this is why it was kept as a secret amongst those people, and why some translations were probably done intentionally, like the earliest street map of Venice was intentionally done wrong, so that the armory, the most important part of Venice where the ships were being made, was mislabeled on the map. This is it. And Ernest Rutherford, father of nuclear physics. So alchemy, chemistry is just as vital now as it was back then. Now we have atomic weapons, but gunpowder cannons, navigation, that type of knowledge would have been the equivalent of seafloor navigation for submarines. The big weaponry systems, the military industrial complex connected to the banking complex is the same issue. It's been going on. Now in the notes, okay, I can skip that one for the moment. So this is actually what Agricola wrote, and now seeing that there are so few who have written on the subject of metals, it appears to me all the more wonderful that so many alchemists have arisen who would compound metals artificially and would change one from another. He goes then on to link to reference, and I omit myself a few, but there are Hermes, Zosimus, Agathodamon, Geber, Merlin, Raymond Lully, Cleopatra the Alchemist, and Maria the Jewess. I'll get more into these, but Hence our ancestors dedicated the inventions of their wisdom to this deity, inscribing all their writings with the name of Hermes. It's a pen name, and these other many of these others are also suspected pen names, where alchemists, scientists of the time in general would simply write this name to protect their identity, but also to give some, make it more powerful, because if it's from Hermes, it would have that extra little oomph to it all. Secret symbols of the Rosicrucians, which includes the emerald tablet, which is from the Corpus Hermetica. Hermes, we inscribing all their writings with the name of Hermes. Hermetic philosophy, same thing. Also in the secret symbols of the Rosicrucians, it mentions Basil Valentine. Basil Valentine, very important alchemist, as of a philosopher's stone. The 12 Keys of Basil Valentine, very important works. Well, Basil Valentine, because of the number, the spread of time, and also the variety of the writing forms, highly suspected that Basil Valentine, if he was an original person, but the majority of his works were by other people using Basil Valentine as their pen name. Hermetic philosophy, and this is Siena Cathedral, Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus. Pen names. So, a famous scene from Spartacus, which one of you is Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus? I am. No, I am. Hermes. No, I am Hermes. No, I am Hermes. We are all Hermes. And this is, so whether it's Basil Valentine, Gabbar, Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus, and others, they are not one, they are many. Now also in De Re Metallica by Agricola, even see Froben edition has a Hermetic Caduceus there right on top, even with the bird wings. It's just swapped it for a bird. He mentions all these other alchemists, all inscribing their writings with the name of Hermes. He includes Geber, mentioned in a recent video as well, and I did back in a series before, Gabbar, where we get the term gibberish from, because it's like, I can't understand this. Well, because it was scientific, but it was also written in a poetic form. We didn't have all the notations for maths and chemistry, but well, Gabbar was more almost certainly a pen name for many people. No, I am Gabbar. No, I am Gabbar. So all these writings get attributed to a certain person. Now, also in the notes on De Re Metallica, he specifies Hermes Trismegistus was a legendary Egyptian personage supposed to have flourished before 1500 BC, and by some considered to be a corruption of the god Thoth, very much in a vein of way Imhotep was promoted. He is supposed to have written a number of works, but those extant or surviving have been demonstrated not to date prior to the 2nd century. He is referred to by the later Greek alchemists and was believed to have possessed the secret of transmutation, which is connected to the philosopher's stone. And he also mentions Osphanes, Zoroaster, but these are all essentially pen names. Very shadowy figure, Osphanes. Also Zoroaster. Pliny mentions a magician of this name who accompanied Xerxes' army. Later this was a favourite pseudonym for ancient magicians. Agricola, still another very shadowy figure. Pen names, these are pseudonyms that were written and used for different figures. Now, all of these are essentially pen names, but they're very important figures because for instance, after the Greeks, and when we had the House of Wisdom and the alchemists such as Geber, mathematicians, astronomers of that period who were collecting, translating works and then improving on them, and from there they were transmitted and came back into Europe. And Maria the Jewess for the Maria's bath, Cleopatra famous for distillation, Zoroaster famous for the pelican flask. So who is Hermes? There is no Hermes. We are all Hermes. And on a side note, when they started thinking for us, it became their world. That's, I think, noteworthy. But so, SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, just there is no Hermes. The Corpus Hermetica suffers many issues, including an original mistranslation, which people have gone back to the original Greek, have noted, just like with Hoover's comments on the translation of De Re Metallica into German, people who were not seeing it as the scientific text it was turned it into a philosophical one. But cheers, have a good one.